If something happened to you, what would happen to your children? A emergency fund is not an option, it's a necessity. And most of the time, nothing happens when you're prepared. It's like in life, stuff only happens when you're not prepared.
You always have to look at what is the worst that could happen, prepare for it, and then pray that it doesn't happen. But at least you're prepared for it if it does.
You can't depend on a job. This is why I preach getting another source of income. But having extra income is for everybody. So even if some people say, oh, well, they don't make enough, you gotta get another job. Learn a skill, start a business, sell something, do something. However you gotta get to it, get to it. But you have to have a savings. That's a non-negotiable.
Today we have a very juicy question from someone who's looking to improve their financial situation. So here's what they asked. I'm 28 with 2 young children and I work a salaried job with a steady income. I've always just paid for things as they come up and have never seen a point in having an emergency fund. I'd love to hear your thoughts on if someone in my situation should have an emergency fund and why.
First question is very simple to answer. We're gonna go in depth though. You have to have an emergency fund. Like, yo, you have 2 children, okay? If something happened to you, what would happen to your children? It's not an option. An emergency fund is not an option, it's a necessity. Now, when we get to how big, then that's a different story. Some people say 3 to 6 months. You know, Mr. Ramsey says 1,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, to each his own, right? I believe it should be bigger than that because it depends, right? It really depends on where you at in your life, what goal you're trying to achieve. It's very unique. It's like DNA. You know, there's not a one size fits all when it comes to this life, right? When it comes to financial freedom or things like that, it really depends on your situation. Everybody's situation is different. The same thing with business, right? I've owned several businesses, and like, it doesn't. People love to talk about what they gross. It doesn't matter what you gross. It's about what you net, right? I know people who gross 2.5 million but have so many expenses, so many employees, they net 400,000. I also know people who have grossed 1.1 million and their expenses are low, they net 900,000. So on paper, it sounds better to gross 2.5 million, but yet the person I know who grossed 1.1 nets almost double the other gentleman. So these are not cookie cutter answers. Don't ever let somebody try to act like it is. Now don't get it twisted. A lot of the principles and the basis, of course, the foundation is the foundation. I'm just saying when you get little nuances like, oh, you need 1 month versus 3 months versus 6 months versus 9 months versus 12 months of savings. You know, it kind of depends on where you're at in your journey. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, where me and my wife are at, we're not in the space to where, like, $1,000 emergency fund is that wouldn't do anything for me. You know what I mean? Like, and then I feel like that's very outdated because nowadays, this isn't like 1990, bro. Like, I don't know a rent in the same neighborhood that even costs $1,000 now.
That's what I was thinking.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, you're basically saying, hey, you can't cover your rent if ish hits the fan. That's not smart, right? That's why, like, personally with me, like, I think emergency fund needs to be minimum 6 months to 12, preferably 12. Now, I'm not saying this is the first step in the journey to stack the whole 12 months. You know what I'm saying? Again, it depends on where you at. Do you have debt? Do you have certain things? But do you need an emergency fund? Yes. Like, why would you not? Why would you risk putting your children's life or livelihood in jeopardy, or your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, right? The test of a true man, you need to make sure your loved ones and yourself are taken care of. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not even financially smart. Like,
yeah. And something else too that I noticed he said was just like, he didn't understand or he's never seen a point in actually having an emergency fund. And most of the time people don't, because they wait until something happens.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, dang, now I understand why. They wait until they're drowning to try to start having an emergency fund. But that's what we want to avoid. Like, for us, we preach financial offense. Like, you never want to be on defense.
Facts.
Trying to scrape by or trying to put together money just to get by. But being on financial offense is having an emergency fund. So that way, when stuff does happen, if it comes up, because life happens for everybody, it's just a matter of when, then you're prepared.
and the main thing too, right? So financial offense is the key. People love saying, oh, I used to play like basketball, right? Defense wins championships. You hear all these old coaches saying that. You might hear it in a lot of other sports too. Defense wins championships. You can't win if you don't score a damn basket. So you have to score. No, offense wins, right? Offense. That's why if you look at the NBA now, it is high scoring. Offense wins. You have to be on offense. Of course, defense too, right? That's why we budget. That's why we manage money. I'm not saying just make money, obviously. But no, you need to have offense. You need to make more money. And also, you talked about the emergency fund as well. So, what did you say on the fund?
Like people wait until something happens for them to actually build.
The whole point too is not to wait until something happens. Like the point of an emergency fund as well is to alleviate stress. Like you can move a lot different when you're not worried about living paycheck to paycheck. You know, so it feels good. You sleep better at night. You go to work different when you know, man, like God forbid if something ever happens to your job or your situation, you're good. Like you're not gonna miss a meal. You know, you don't have to find just the next job in the next month just to get something so your family is on the street, because you set up at least 6 months or, you know, give or take or whatnot of an emergency fund. So now you can make sure you pay your rent. Children got food, especially again, guy asked the question, got 2 children. You know, pay for, depending on how young they are, right? Pay for formula, pay for baby food, just, you know, regular food, whatever have you, like all whatever your expenses are. So it's key. Like it's not an option, man. Without that, dude, you're kind of like, you're really just, I mean, dude, you playing like you playing without that.
I feel like a lot of people too are really delusional to what can happen in life. And I feel like 2020 showed everybody what could really happen. Like, you know, places going out of business, people getting laid off from their job, like stuff like that actually happens. And I feel people get into this place of comfort and they're just content with where they're at, and they don't really think that anything bad could happen to them, which we don't want to be walking around scared in life, but we just want to be prepared because, again, things can happen. And a lot of people think that they find security or comfort in their job, but honestly, no job is secure. He said that he has a steady income from his salary, but he could lose that at any moment. Like, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy, but that's just the reality of it. Yeah, it's just a reality of it. And you have to think that way, especially when you have children. You always have to look at, okay, what is the worst that could happen? Prepare for it and then pray that it doesn't happen. But at least you're prepared for it if it does. And that's something that I feel so many people overlook, is the fact that no job is secure and they just go on about life thinking that they're always going to be good. And then when something happens, then that's when it's like, you know, just all chaos breaks loose.
And most of the time, nothing happens when you're prepared. It seems, it's like in life, stuff only happens when you're not prepared. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? When you have that 6 months emergency saving, you will realize, wow, you never have a emergency that actually costs anywhere over a month's worth of expenses. That's because you're prepared. It seems like their expenses or things only happen when you don't have the money. Mm-hmm. You know, so we want to always prepare too, because again, even in the preparation and doing that, you change the way your mind works. You change the way the way you start to move throughout life. So not only are you preparing just financially, but even to get that money saved up, you have to change certain habits, which is going to change the outcome of other things in your life. Just like working out or eating right. Like you might, I want to work out. Where to work out, you start prepping your food, you start cooking. Well, a byproduct of that is you start saving money because you're no longer going out for lunch, eating this, eating that, and you end up saving money on the bill. So this stuff has a spillover effect. Like it doesn't affect just one area. Right. Having an emergency fund doesn't just make you, I just have a fund. It's not for no reason. It makes so many things better. And also, this is why, too, like again, like my wife said, a job is not stable. I say that all the time. You can't depend on a job. This is why I preach getting another source of income. You can still work a job. I'm going to tell you like this. Being a business owner or a full-time entrepreneur is not for everybody. And I would never preach that. But having extra income is for everybody, right? So even if some people say, oh, well, they don't make enough. You got to get another job. Get another job, learn a skill, start a business, sell something, do something. Like, it's 2024, bro. There are no excuses to not be making money when we have the internet and we have technology. And I'm not saying people hear that they instantly want to get defensive or because of fear, right? Because of things like that, like, oh, well, and they want to say what their situation is. Dude, we all got the same amount of time in a day. You know what I'm saying? But again, make it fit. Nobody said you had to go make $100,000 a month. Make $400. Like, that's super easy. You can make $400 a month driving Uber for 4 hours a week, you can make extra $100 a week. So however you got to get to it. But you have to have a savings. That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, it is. And a big thing that I see too with people who don't see, like this man, who don't see like a point in having an emergency fund, often just aren't really financially literate in the first place, or really like know much about money, or even have the discipline to save the money. Because getting to, like my husband was saying, getting to a 6 months savings for the emergency fund,
minimum.
Yeah, that's minimum. But it's like that's gonna take a short-term sacrifice for you to actually build up that fund. And I know a lot of people, like, they are in the habit of spending all that they have. I mean, I grew up in a home like where that was kind of, the norm. And so that's something.
They're spending more than they had. They're using credit cards.
Yeah, spending
like
more that they have. So I can understand how some people struggle with that, because that was something that I had to get out of the habit of as well. So you can too. But a lot of people just are in that habit of spending all that they have and not putting it away. I mean, I've talked to people who say, oh yeah, I put the money away, but then I immediately put it back into my checking account to spend it. But it's like, it's gonna take a short-term sacrifice to build up that fund. And then once that money is in there, you're gonna have the discipline to not touch it. And once you get that 6 months, then at that point you can decide if you continue to put into it, if you just leave it how it is, and then you want to go back to your old ways of spending all that you have. But at least have that fund.
And again, up front, it may not be 6 as the very first savings goal, right? We want to make this thing achievable. We're not trying to, deter you from going across your journey the same way like when I used to help people with fitness stuff. Hey, their goal may be to lose 30 pounds. We're not going to focus on 30. We're going to focus on 2, then 3. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to build up so we can build the confidence and momentum. So it's not going to start like that, but that is the goal, is minimum 6 months, so you can waver any storm or go through anything and keep going through life without stress or worry.
So to the man who asked this question, we hope that this helps you, and also to anyone who may be in a similar situation or who has similar questions, we hope that this helps you out. Obviously, you're on this video for a reason, so you want to better your financial situation in some kind of way. Exactly. And if you want to stay connected with us, make sure that you click the link in our description.
And if you like making money, make sure you subscribe. And if you don't like making money, then don't subscribe. It's that simple, man.